Hi, I'm Marissa Levy. I'm the chair of the Institutional Review Board on campus. And I'd like to take a few minutes just to have a very informal video for you that walks you through the process of the IRB at Stockton. The types of IRB review that your application will be subjected to are exempt, expedited, and full. Many faculty worry that the IRB process is going to take a long time, and that's not true. In fact, at Stockton, we really work to make sure that we have a quick turnaround for your proposals. Exempt and expedited proposals are reviewed on a rolling basis by me, the chair, or my designee. Exempt and expedited applications really involve minimal or no risk to human participants. If you have a question about whether or not your project falls into this level of review or any of the levels, the best thing to do is just email me first with a little description of your project, and I can probably target and troubleshoot and let you know which option is best. Ultimately, whichever one you choose, I have the authority to sort of deselect that and put in the appropriate level of review if a change is required. So don't stress too much about letting us know which level of review you think is required. The main difference in terms of approval is going to be the turnaround time. For an exempt or expedited review, as I mentioned, I will review these on a rolling basis. And usually this is once a week. I usually tell faculty to assume that you'll get a 1 to 2 week turnaround just in case I have to travel and I'm not in the office. Exempt review involves data that are collected previously by somebody else or that does not have any human participants involved in the process. And I'd say probably about 30% of our proposals are exempt. The most common type of review that I see, however, is expedited. And expedited proposals do involve human participants, but there's minimal risk to those participants. And then we also have full review. Full review takes a little bit longer than exempt and expedited reviews, and that's because a full review requires the entire IRB committee in order to review your proposal. So we review proposals for full review applications once per month, and that starts in September, October, November, December. There is no meeting in January because we are closed for the winter break. We pick up in February, March, April, May, and June, and then the IRB also doesn't review full review applications in July or August. However, if you have exempt or expedited applications during the summer or during winter break, those will still be reviewed on that 1 week to 2 week kind of rolling basis. We also have a process for a renewal so that once you have IRB approval, which is good for 1 year, if you need to renew your approval, it simply takes you a minute or two to fill out the application and submit it. So you'll also see that checkbox on the application itself. Because we are a federally wide assured certified IRB, we do have our rules and regulations and guidelines on our Stockton website, which I'm going to show you in a minute. It's fairly brief. It's a 12-page document that shows you how we select the IRB members and sort of goes through all of our procedures when we review applications. We also have an FAQ page, which is very helpful for you to sort of think about where your proposal would fit in the grand scheme of things if you have questions about exempt or expedited review. But I also think it's a very good teaching tool, and many faculty use it in their classes. Sort of to show students, what level of review would be required based on certain scenarios. So I think this could also be useful as a teaching tool. One thing that we often provide for Stockton students, faculty, and staff who are looking to get IRB approval is a number of examples of what we're going to be looking at and looking for in your application. So one thing you will find on our website is this informed consent checklist, and these are the types of things, again, I will show you on the web, but it'll be helpful to make sure before you submit your application that if you do have an informed consent, it meets all of the criteria that we're going to be looking for during your review. We also have many examples of actual consent forms on the website. We have some examples from the hard sciences and some from the social sciences and some from the arts and humanities as well. In order to get IRB approval, for expedited and full review applications, you will need to complete a CITI training. So CITI is the Collaborative Institute Training Initiative, and Stockton subscribes to the CITI training so that all of our students, faculty, and staff who are interested in getting IRB approval can go on and complete a certification on their web-based system. This is great, again, also for training in your classes. So even if you are not considering submitting an IRB proposal, your students could take the CITI training as part of a course, and in fact, many students do as part of a research class. You can print your own certificate from the web when you're finished, and then the Stockton IRB is also able to see on the administrator side that you have completed the training. And I'll show you the instructions for that in just a few minutes. In addition to the actual IRB form, which we're going to go through, there is also a change in research form and an unanticipated problems form. So a change in research form is the form that we provide you with if there is a small change to your research project, but something that needs to be noted. These forms are used after you already have IRB approval. So if your project was approved and then you have a addition of an investigator, let's say, you may need to add that investigator to the proposal. It's not a substantive change, it's something minor, and that form can be submitted, and then the chair can sign off on that information for you. Unanticipated problems form should be used if there are any problems that come about during your research project that are connected to your research project in any way. Oops, showed you that one too soon. All right, let's go switch over to the web so that we can look at the different things that you're going to find on the Stockton website. So the first thing that you want to know is, how am I going to get to this website? If you're on the Stockton webpage and you type IRB into the search bar, the first entry will bring you to the Grants Office and Institutional Review Board webpage. So you can see that here. It is a very basic website. It's nothing fancy, but it houses all of the important information as well as the online IRB application, which you will need. The members will be listed here, and you can always check back for updated members. We don't have a very large or fast turnover on the IRB, and that is mostly because the IRB members take a more advanced and rigorous CITI training, which takes about 8 hours. So when we get IRB members, we tend to keep them for a little while, so all of that hard work can pay off. But you can see the members who are on here. Oh, specific to the federal-wide assurance regulations, we have to have members from across the college. So we have members from a variety of schools on campus, and we're also required to have an outside member, someone who is not connected to Stockton, on our IRB. The due dates and meeting times for full IRB review, again, this schedule, let me repeat, is only for full IRB review. The exempt and expedited applications are reviewed on a rolling basis every week or so. When the committee meets, though, for full IRB proposal review, we have a listed date for when the applications are due, which is 2 weeks prior to the date of our meetings, and this is updated every year. So it's important that you know, if you're submitting an application for full review, that you need to submit 2 weeks prior to the meeting date that you wish for your project to be reviewed by the IRB. And that 2-week lead time is very important because the IRB members need to read all of the applications that are submitted for that month's IRB. So we do ask that you adhere to that schedule. Okay, I'm going to show you the online application, but right before I do that, I want to show you that there is a how to use the new application instruction manual. And if you click there, the PDF will open to show you the step-by-step procedure for submitting a new IRB application. So if you are new to our technology at Stockton, I would suggest that you take a look at this PDF first, which gives you some information about the how-tos. This is not going to help you figure out, is it exempt, is it expedited, does it require full review? This is just a step-by-step process for submitting the actual application. Okay, so you can find that right here, the instruction manual. Once you complete that, reading that, you can submit your online application. And you see when you do that, it will tell you, again, all of the things that you will need to complete. But in this window, you have a link straight to the city training if you'd like to go there to complete your required city training for an expedited or a full review. And you can also click on exempt, expedited, and full, and when you do that, a file will open to show you the rules and regulations for each of those. So what we would expect to see in each of those categories. Again, don't get worried if you submit one of these and it turns out you're wrong. That will become evident as I review it, and I can make that change for you. Ultimately, it's not your call anyway. When you're ready to log in, you're going to go down to the IRB application request form, and you're going to put in your username for the portal and your portal password. Once you do that, you'll be able to start a new IRB application up here. Once you start an IRB application, you will see on your screen all of your current applications. And you will also see other projects that have been completed. This is where you're going to go if you have an informed consent and an informed assent form. You'll be able to go here back into your application, view it, and print that form. Because once it's approved, I will stamp it for you, the informed consent form, and I will upload that for safekeeping with your application. So your screen, of course, will look a little different, but you would enter here for a new application, and once you do that, you will have all of those lined up here for your review. That way you can go back and check them out. Okay. I'm going to go back to the IRB page. And skip down a bit. There is the online application here, and then there is an area for IRB members to review. But what I want to show you down here is the guidelines and regulations for the IRB, so you can take a look. That's that 12-page document. Also the IRB FAQs, which you can find right here. And then here is another fillable form for the IRB application, a checklist, and this is the checklist that I had mentioned to you before. So you can go through and make sure your consent form and your assent form is on Stockton letterhead, gives a brief description, gives alternates and benefits, all of the things that we are required to inform our participants of before we start our research project. And these are the things that we're going to be looking at on the IRB when we go through, because we also will fill out that checklist. We do have, as I mentioned before, examples of informed consent, and you can see that these are actually in track changes, many of them, because it shows you why each of the things that are required on the formed consent are important. So it has to be on letterhead. There's a note about that there. You are giving a description of the research project, so it shows you where that is. You're reminding the participant that their participation is voluntary, etc., etc. So as you go through, you can take a look at the informed consents that are most similar to the ones that you might use in your field. And then our change in research form and unanticipated problems reporting form are all located right here on the web. As I mentioned before, you will need to complete the city training. You have the link to the city training here and a link to instructions here. So again, if you just open this PDF, it will be very helpful in describing to you the point and click parts that you'll need to review in the actual city training. Now, most people will complete the social science research investigators because most of our proposals come from a field similar or in the social and behavioral sciences, and that usually takes about 2 hours. Be forewarned that if you have your students complete the student researchers module, it is much shorter, and if you're doing this for points in your class, you may want to actually have them complete the social and behavioral researcher investigations investigators section instead. And that's a little bit more comprehensive. Again, you'll be able to do a print screen at the end so that you can have that information, and your certification is good for 2 years. But I will also have to check that on my side, so you don't have to worry about necessarily converting that to a PDF as proof for me. I'll be able to access it. As you go through and you fill out your application, I mentioned before that you will have to complete the application. You're going to log in, and then there's a final submit button when you go to submit your applications. When you're ready and you have approval and you're going to go back to print the informed consent form, which most people will have, except if you're doing online research or you're not asking participants questions, you may not have an actual informed consent. But if you do, it will be important for you to go back into your application and then let me find one that has life history. Certainly does. You'll be able to go back in and you'll find your informed consent form marked stamped something towards the bottom, and you can see that this one is stamped Levy Life Histories Informed Consent and then with the date. So you'd be able to go back in into your IRB application, and then you would be able to log in and pull up your PDF for that document. And you'd be able to print those and use those for your research study. Okay. So I think that pretty much brings us back to the end of the presentation that I have for you. I urge you to, ask any questions that you have of the IRB. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a confusing process, but it is important that if you have questions, you can ask me any of those questions. I don't think it's quite as complicated as this chalk on the board, but a lot of times faculty especially get sort of wrapped up in which level of review they require, and it's as simple as sending me an email explaining a little bit, and then I can really triage the appropriate level of review. Hopefully your IRB process is quick and expedient, and if there's anything I can do to help you, be sure to let me know. Thanks.